Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Wondery.
Hi, I'm Jessie Prey.
And I'm Andy Cassette. If you're captivated by true crime stories that delve deep into the complexities of love and betrayal, Love Murder is your next binge.
Each week, we present long-form narrative episodes backed by meticulous research, exploring cases where passion leads to peril.
Take, for instance, Blanche Taylor Moore, a seemingly devout preacher's wife who concealed a deadly secret, leaving a trail of poisoned partners.
Or the tragic tale of Chad Shelton and Dwayne Johnson, whose sudden deaths unveiled a web of familial deceit and revenge.
These aren't just stories. They're deep dives into the human psyche and the dark side of love.
Join us on Love Murder as we uncover the chilling narratives of love gone fatally wrong.
Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 421 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. It's my birthday week.
It is your birthday week.
By the time this comes out, I will have aged a whole year.
And it looks like you're...
And I look like it.
No.
I know what you're trying to say. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Shannon.
Hey, Shannon.
Cade Schultz.
What's going on, Cade?
Kyle Hughes jumped out at our highest level.
Hey, thanks, Kyle.
Jenny Quintero.
Oh, what's going on, Jenny?
Fallon Pitt.
Hey, Fallon.
Bobby Valentine.
What up, Bobby?
Dara Tackett.
Hey, Dara.
Kevin DiVincenzo.
Kevin DiVincenzo.
Spike Adelica.
Hey, what up, Spike?
And last but not least, Joseph Hayes.
Hey, thanks, Joseph.
So we appreciate the new support. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Amelia Thompson.
Hey, Mila, how's the flighting going? The flighting?
The flighting? The flying?
No, the flighting.
The flighting.
Yeah.
But we appreciate all the support. So right now we have out a Patreon episode that dropped Saturday night on Alexander Jackson. This was a 20-year-old guy. He was an Eagle Scout, no criminal record, no history of troubled behavior, but massacred his family. And, the defense argued that he had no motive to kill them, but we go through all the evidence and what the prosecution considered his motive. And then we have an episode out on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about Nancy Brophy, a former author who wrote romantic suspense novels, who was arrested for murdering her husband. And what came out was that she put her thriller crime fiction novel writing experience to use in kind of the planning of this murder. It's a fascinating case. So make sure you check that out. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am.
We're talking about the unsolved murders of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge were close friends who were murdered in broad daylight while sitting together on a park bench. 6 years later, the killer has not been caught. Kate Brown grew up in Olmsted Falls, Ohio. Her family described her as goofy, lighthearted, and carefree. However, her sister, Lauren Rayo, told Unsolved Mysteries. I think the fight between dark and light was a challenge. Kate's sister, Alex Zubin, explained that Kate struggled with depression and anxiety, and for years, her coping mechanism was drinking. And unfortunately, Gibbs, I think there are a lot of people who struggle with both depression and anxiety.
You're exactly right on that.
People cope with it in different ways. I'm sure many people might cope with it, by drinking. But I thought this was an interesting quote on the part of her sister, Lauren. I think the fight between dark and light was a challenge.
And I think that would be for many people.
Yeah. I don't know that it's all that uncommon. A lot of us have our ups, our downs, our good days, our bad days, and it can be a struggle. Kate decided to get sober, and by 2019, she was in a good place. She worked for QCG Goods, a company which bought and sold jewelry on eBay. She liked her job and was overall really happy with her life. And it's a great story, right? She's struggling. She's drinking a lot, but eventually works hard to, get to a good place where she's sober and she's very happy.
Turn it around.
One constant in Kate's life was her close friend, Carnell Sledge. Kate and Carnell met around 2009. Their friendship ebbed and flowed over the years. According to Lauren, there were times when Kate or Carnell were in serious relationships and they didn't communicate as often, but they always reconnected as if no time had passed.
You ever had a friend like that?
I don't know if I had one specifically. I feel like a lot of my friends in high school, I experienced something similar, right?
Yeah.
When you're not in a relationship, you're hanging out with your buddies all the time. If they're not in a relationship. But once somebody gets in a real serious relationship, it kind of becomes all consuming.
It does.
To a lot of people, most of us. And so you're not hanging out with your buddies as much as you were. But when that relationship ends, you're right back to what you were doing before. It's like nothing ever changed.
Just kind of pick up where you left off.
Yeah. I think that's normal. Carnell grew up in Bedford, Ohio, and was about 7 years older than Kate. Carnell was described as a kind and caring person. His younger brother, Terrence, said, despite his stature, he was 6'4", Carnell was a teddy bear. Something that's often said about you, not because of your stature.
Because my hairy chest?
No, you're closer to Tom Cruise than 6'4", but
no, that's just mean.
You are often described as a teddy bear. I mean, some of that's because of your furry costume, but some of that is just because of your big heart.
Yeah, but I'd rather be that than described as you as a gorilla.
Yeah. Well, we make quite a pair going to our furry conventions. Carnell's cousin, LaToya White, told the outlet WKYC, I remember him as being a fun-loving person. He was an amazing person, family-oriented. He actually kept us all together. You ever have anybody in your family that kind of was the glue, kept everybody together, and then when that person either died or moved away or whatever it was, the family just didn't get together as much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My uncle died at a pretty young age, and I remember vividly that after his death, things just weren't the same. My family didn't get together as often. It was very sad. In 2019, Carnell worked as an audio-visual tech at Crescent Digital and volunteered as a youth consultant. He previously worked as a special education specialist. He was a basketball coach for children with disabilities, and all the children loved him. So, I think, you're getting a sense of who these two people were. Kate obviously had some obstacles, some struggles in her life, but it sounds like she worked very hard to overcome them. She got sober. She got in a good place. And then you kind of look at Carnell and especially at his work with, children with disabilities, a special education specialist. I think it really takes a special kind of person. You got to have a lot of patience.
Sure do.
And he just sounds like he was a really great guy. Kate, Brown, and Carnell Sledge were murdered on June 4th, 2019 at Cleveland Metro Park's Rocky River Reservation. Kate was familiar with this park. Her apartment building overlooked the Cleveland Metro Parks, and she visited friends there often. So we mentioned it on Patreon, but, this case takes place in our home state of Ohio. Now, it's in Cleveland, pretty far from us, about 3.5 hours. Kate's sister, Alex Zubin, told Cleveland Scene that she believes Kate was having a hard day, possibly because of something related to their conversation that morning. Normally, when Kate was having a bad day, she reached out to Carnell to talk. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, just think about all the different things we said about Carnell. He sounds like he was an extremely caring individual, the type of person who you would definitely want to lean on when you were having a bad day.
Yeah, compassionate.
Yeah, a very compassionate person. Authorities reviewed surveillance from Kate's apartment complex to track her movements. She came home from work and signed into her building's gym at 3:38 p.m. According to Unsolved Mysteries, at 4:02 p.m., Carnell messaged Kate asking if she wanted to meet him. She called him at 4:10 p.m., and they spoke for about 10 minutes. Authorities do not know exactly what they spoke about. And that is one of the obstacles. Right? When you're investigating a case like this, you can get the cell phone records. You know who talked to who at a certain time. You know when calls were placed. You know how long they lasted for. But when the two individuals who were talking are not around, there's no way to know exactly what they were talking about.
Which is unfortunate.
It is, because you have to ask the question, does what they were talking about have something to do with what happened?
Yeah. Related to the murderer.
Yeah. Now it's different with text messages, right? Sometimes they can actually get the text messages, but on a phone call, there's no way to get that information. Carnell left work at 4:24 p.m. Kate signed out of the gym at 4:31. Both of them headed to Rocky River Reservation in their own vehicles. An officer was running radar on the road about a mile from the park. The officer's dash cam captured Kate's car at 5:01 p.m. Carnell's car passed the cruiser at 5:03.
Okay, just minutes apart.
Yeah. And Kate and Carnell arrived in the parking lot about 2 minutes later, and they headed to a bench that faced the river just steps away from the parking lot. Authorities don't know exactly why they chose to meet at the park that day. But I think on the surface, Gibbs, it doesn't seem like, they're going out of their way to put themselves in harm's way, right? This is a metro park at 5 o'clock. They're very close to the parking lot, sitting on a bench. Now, I get it. Some of those can be kind of secluded, right? If there's no one else there, depends on how big it is and how often people go there. But I guess my point is, they're not going to a quote unquote bad part of town to buy drugs or to do something illegal. They're just sitting on a bench in a park talking.
Which a lot of people do at parks.
Kate's sister Alex told Cleveland Scene it's also possible she wanted to waste some time while waiting to hear from a guy she liked who was close to Alex's ex-husband. And it was said that the parking lot and bench were visible from the road, which experienced high traffic daily. Multiple cars likely drove past the crime scene. So again, right, they're not out in the middle of nowhere. Authorities know that Kate unlocked her phone at 5:08 p.m. Two witnesses called 911 at 5:22 p.m., meaning Kate and Carnell were killed sometime within about a 14-minute window.
Pretty small window.
Tony and Caitlin Vaca came to the park to launch their kayaks in the river. Caitlin saw a man laying by the river and told Tony to check on him. Tony approached and saw a bullet hole in the man's head. Based on the way his body looked, it seemed like the murder had just happened. Tony then saw a woman lying face down on the riverbank. Caitlin had walked over at this point, and Tony told her to go back to the car and call 911. On her way back to the vehicle, Caitlin saw a truck in the parking lot with a man inside, which seemed odd to her. Okay, I'm not sure why that seemed odd to her, but obviously, if you have another person in the parking lot, that could be a possible suspect in the murders.
Yeah, maybe to her, maybe the man just seemed odd. Maybe the way the truck was parked in the parking lot.
Maybe it was just the fact that he was still sitting in his truck.
Well, that too.
And hadn't gotten out to, walk around the park or do whatever he was there to do. Investigators arrived at the scene and discovered that Carnell was shot twice in the back of the head. Kate was shot once. The primary theory is that the killer approached from behind and shot Carnell once, supported by blood found on the back of the bench, and then shot him again when he fell to the ground. Kate jumped down to the riverbank and attempted to run away and was shot in the back of the head.
I mean, all that could have happened within a minute.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have taken very long, right, to fire 2 shots at Carnell and then shoot Kate. It could have happened very quickly. But I want to go back to these 2 people who were just out wanting to launch their kayaks, and this is what they stumble upon. You're getting ready to get in a little exercise, frolic in the water, and your whole day is turned upside down.
Yeah, just the disbelief that you have when you get there and you're like, honey, what's that guy doing over there? And you go over there and find out he's dead. He's been murdered. And then you find out there's a woman murdered.
When I go back to, what Tony said, which was that he could tell this had happened very recently. Obviously, it must have been a pretty gruesome scene. Now, the police can't say for certain who the target was. Carnell, Kate, or both of them, but it's possible Carnell was the target because he was shot first. And I understand why that could be a possibility.
But could he have been shot first because he was 6'4", he was threatening, and you needed to take out that threat first before you moved on to your real target?
Well, there is a thought, right, in a lot of attacks that the most dangerous individual is going to be targeted first because they're the biggest threat. And obviously, between the 2 of them, it would have been Carnell. So I understand your line of thinking there. 3 shell casings were found at the scene, but the murder weapon was not found. When the police arrived, they found the man sitting in his truck in the parking lot. He explained that he worked for a local roofing company and was working on an estimate and work orders. He saw Kate and Carnell arrive, but he didn't hear gunshots or see any suspicious people. So, okay, is it plausible that, this guy just pulled in because he needed to do some work in his car?
Yeah.
I would say so.
I've done that before.
Right. You got to do some paperwork or whatever. I think what is tougher is that, he sees the pair arrive, but doesn't hear gunshots. Seeing them arrive has to guarantee that he was there when they were killed, right? Because he's still there when the bodies are found.
Right.
Now, either he's got heavy rock music cranked up to 11, or there was some other reason why he wouldn't hear these gunshots.
Maybe the shooter used a suppressor?
Yeah, it's always possible. Authorities think it's possible he truly didn't hear anything because Kate and Carnell were killed by a small caliber weapon. And like you said, Gibbs, if the killer used a silencer, then the gunshots would be even quieter. So smaller caliber, less noise, right? You add in a suppressor, a silencer, that would make it even quieter. If you're talking about something like a 22 with a suppressor, you really don't even hear much of a gunshot at all. What you really hear is the gun operating, the slide going back and forth, or the bolt going back and forth.
So if you're sitting in your truck up around the corner, up the hill, whatever, wherever the parking lot is, and you're concentrating on your paperwork, probably not going to hear it.
No, you may not.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen people on the range with a suppressed 22 not even wearing earmuffs. I think it's okay. I don't know that I would do it, but yeah. I think it's that quiet. But this man in the truck was considered a person of interest, and the police looked into him extensively. They seized his cell phone and his work device and verified that he was doing estimates and work orders at the time of the murder. And like I said, how could you not look into this guy? He sees the couple pull in, so he's obviously there when they get there, and he's still there at the time that they're found dead.
Yeah.
He's got to be a very high on the list as a person of interest.
Yeah, because you're thinking, at minimum, he had to see something that could be valuable to this investigation.
But again, if he's jamming out and doing work, maybe he didn't. But does that also mean that, whoever did this was very brazen? I mean, did they not see this guy sitting in his truck? Again, it's like 5:00. It's not dark.
Or did they just not care? They weren't concerned.
Yeah, maybe they were wearing a mask. I don't know. Robbery was considered an unlikely motive because Kate's phone was found near her body. Carnell's work and personal phones were found in his vehicle, and both of their wallets were found in their vehicles. So, there's a couple of thoughts there for me on that. I don't know if a killer was smart. Would they take cell phones? This case is not that old, right? 6 years ago, obviously there was the ability to track cell phones.
Sure.
So do you want to take 2 or 3 devices that can be tracked?
I would say no, unless you knew that there was something on that device that could incriminate you and you needed to get rid of it.
Yeah, but just as a form of robbery.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I don't know if you want to take a chance on the cell phones. Now, the wallets are a different story, but then are you taking a chance of being there longer, being seen?
Yeah, because now you're going to have to walk up to the parking lot and, go through their vehicles to see if you can find those wallets.
Yeah, to find out if they're in there. But it doesn't change the fact that it kind of rules out robbery, right? Because they didn't take anything, or they didn't take these things, I guess. The police and the families focused on figuring out why Kate and Carnell decided to meet in the park that day. Carnell's mother, Darlene, told Unsolved Mysteries she thought it was a last-minute decision and that Carnell was trying to help Kate in some way. And we mentioned it, right? They both helped each other out when they were going through hard times. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Kate's sister, Alexandra, agreed, saying that if Kate reached out to Carnell, it was likely because she needed a friend at that moment. If it was Carnell who wanted to meet, it was likely because he had something important to tell her, possibly about their relationship. A month or 2 before the murders, Kate revealed to her sister that Carnell had said, "Kate, one day we're going to end up together." Okay, so for me, it changes the dynamics of their relationship a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, we're talking about the fact that they're friends. But it sounds like, at least on the part of Carnell, he had desire to be more than friends. And I think you have to factor that in, especially in the wake of these 2 individuals being murdered.
Yeah. Maybe somebody didn't want them to be in a relationship.
Or they were upset that they thought it was going to happen. We just don't know. Whatever the reason they decided to meet, it was important enough that Carnell chose to rearrange his plans. For the evening, he had already agreed to show up for a family dinner at his grandmother's house at 5 p.m.
I mean, if you think about it, it really was a short window of time from the time that they decided to meet and the time that they were most likely killed. So it's not like a killer had an opportunity to plan this all day. Like this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to get him to the park, and then I'm going to kill him. It had to be a very spontaneous event.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And so the next question is, how does the person know, assuming it's one person involved here, and they were targeting these two, that they had made the decision to meet at the park? I mean, were they following one or the other? All questions to consider.
Sure.
One early theory was that the murders were possibly a hate crime. Kate was a white woman and Carnell was a black man. Kate's father, Tom Brown, was told there are over 30 hate groups in the area. It was thought that perhaps someone drove by, saw a black man and a white woman together, and was so outraged that they killed them. Now, you would like to think, Gibbs, that in 2019, this wouldn't happen. But we know that it does. It still does.
Still does.
I mean, it's not the Deep South in the mid 1900s, but this stuff is still happening, unfortunately. Authorities also considered the possibility that the murders were a random act of violence not related to race. And I think if you're going to have the one theory, then I think you have to have the other one as well.
Sure you do.
Another theory was that it was gang related, possibly a gang initiation. However, authorities consider this unlikely. According to one investigator's interview with Unsolved Mysteries, gang initiations that involve committing crimes typically target rival gangs, not innocent strangers. And that would make sense, right? I mean, again, gangs do a lot of stuff that is criminal, doesn't make sense. But you would think if your initiation involves murder, there would be some rhyme or reason to it, like targeting a rival gang. Not just going out and finding anyone you can find and killing them. What is it? I guess, what is that proving as far as the initiation?
Yeah, besides the fact that you're not afraid to kill a random person.
And maybe it could be. The police focused on Kate and Carnell's friends and associates. So again, you've got some theories that involve strangers, right? Stranger violence. But we know most murders are committed not by strangers. They're committed by someone that, the victims know. So it makes sense, right? To focus on friends, focus on people that Kate and Carnell knew. One person the police looked into was Carnell's ex-girlfriend, Alyssa Miller. Some felt that Alyssa was over the top at Carnell's funeral. One of Carnell's close friends noted that Alyssa had a concealed carry permit. Alyssa spoke to Unsolved Mysteries and said her relationship with Carnell was, quote, hard to define. They started talking online around 2018. When they met, she felt like she had known him her whole life. They dated for about 6 months and decided they were better as friends. A month before he was killed, they started talking again, and they were planning on getting back together.
But it's an obvious person you have to look at. Maybe she's threatened.
Yeah, maybe she sees Kate as a rival. We talked about it, right? Carnell had told Kate, hey, we're going to end up together. So you could have some jealousy here as a motive. Alyssa saw Carnell Saturday, the weekend before he was killed. He also texted her around 3 p.m. on June 4th to check on her because she was going through a hard time. She never heard back after she responded. Alyssa was at work at the time of the murder. She spoke to the police and she turned in her weapon when asked. Testing determined her gun was not the murder weapon. It sounds like, Gibbs, that she complied as much as anyone possibly could.
Sure does.
And to me, that level of compliance usually means you didn't have anything to do with it.
Right.
Because if you're going to go through all that, give up your gun, fully cooperate, you're doing so because you're confident. Alyssa told Unsolved Mysteries she thinks the killer was someone Kate knew because she can't imagine someone wanting to hurt Carnell.
Well, we did hear about how wonderful Carnell was and how friendly and non-confrontational.
The kids loved him.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him. Carnell's brother, Terrence, also said, I guess I'm biased because I'm Nell's brother, but I don't think it was him or someone he knew. And I don't want to point the blame at Kate, but I really think there was something or someone that maybe had an issue with her. And I get that, right? The family is going to be biased. There's no way around that. You're not going to want to think it was your family member who someone had an issue with. You're more likely to think it was the person they were with. But at the same time, I get what he's saying, right? He's not trying to put the blame on Kate, and it wouldn't be her fault, most likely, if somebody had an issue with her. Anyway, after the murder, Kate's sister Alex started looking deeper into her personal life. She went through Kate's belongings and read her journals. In the months before she died, Kate lost a significant amount of weight. She was feeling confident and was ready to get back into the dating scene as she hadn't been in a serious relationship in a long time. Kate signed up for Tinder and went on dates every now and then. The Friday before she was killed, she was communicating with a man she met on a dating app. They met for a date, but Kate had a feeling something was off. She left the date early because she felt unsafe.
That kind of screams possible person of interest.
Oh, absolutely. I've never used any of these dating apps. I think I've said it before. None of these apps existed. Actually, no apps existed when I got married. There was no iPhones, so there was no apps. But we have seen a lot of cases where, people have met someone on one of these apps and they end up being a bad person. You don't know who you're meeting, right? You don't know who you're communicating with online. And that doesn't just go for apps. I mean, you could be talking to somebody on Facebook.
You could.
For a long time.
Yeah.
You think they're great, but they could be putting on an act. And when you meet them, they're not the person you think they are.
It's easy to be anybody you want to be behind the computer screen. Right?
It really is. And it's scary. But, how else are you going to meet someone? It's the same thing as it used to be for us, Gibby. You go to a bar, you meet someone, you don't know who the heck they are.
No, you don't know. In that short period of time, you don't know.
And you went home with so many women, you had no idea who these women were.
Okay, Wilt. Wasn't that your nickname? Wilt Chamberlain?
I heard
Jr.?
a story from your friends that used to carry around one of those deli things where you take a ticket and the girls were just taking a ticket. I mean, I don't know what you were doing. But I guess what I'm getting at in all seriousness is, whether it's an app, online, face to face, you don't know in the beginning who anybody is. You really don't.
I mean, honestly, when you're in a relationship with somebody, even months into it,
you still don't know.
Yeah.
They can turn out to be a lot different. But I'm with you, right? This has to be at least a person of interest. She meets this man. She has a feeling that something's not right. And she actually says she felt unsafe. Later that weekend, Kate found out that this man was an accomplice in a murder a decade earlier. The man and his brother stabbed a person and set the body on fire. Okay, you definitely swiped the wrong way.
Exactly.
On this guy. Obviously, that was not in his dating profile.
Well, at least you know how the apps work.
I know there's a swipe left or right. I do know that. I don't know which one is which one's good and which one's bad. But what a shock, right? To find this out after the fact that you just went on a date with someone who stabbed a person and then set the body on fire.
Yeah, that's somebody you don't want to associate with yourself with.
No, but doesn't it have to go through your mind, the what ifs?
Absolutely.
Hey, I was out with this guy. Yeah. What if this happened? What if, we decided to go for a nightcap back to my place, his place?
Could that have been me?
Yeah, something could have got out of hand. Kate was said to have been pretty frantic after finding this out. According to Alex, She texted Alex that her date told her he stabbed someone because that person pulled a knife on him. Kate never saw him again, as far as her family knows. So it's not in the dating profile, but he does disclose it while on the date. I don't know that that's the best icebreaker to use.
It's very low on the list. Like,
of things you should say?
Yeah.
But I get it. You got to give the guy credit for being honest, I guess. But I think 99% of the time, you're going to be scaring the person away the minute you start talking about that.
Maybe put that in your profile. Hey, by the way, I did do a little bit of time because I stabbed somebody, but it was in self-defense. I just want to get that out there to all you ladies.
So consider that when you're making your decision on which way to swipe.
Yeah, exactly.
The police looked into the man's alibi and determined he was in Southern Ohio at the time of the murders, which is a little scary because we are in Southern Ohio.
Very true.
And you are in Southern Ohio.
I am in Southern Ohio.
Kate dated another man for over a year, but she broke up with him a few years prior to the murder. He didn't want to take no for an answer. Kate's sister Lauren said they had a troubled relationship and this man was abusive. Although they were broken up, Kate continued seeing him in secret. Kate spent the night before the murder with her ex-boyfriend. Okay, we got a lot of people who are kind of jumping out as, at the very least, Gibbs, persons of interest. You know, we're talking about a lot of red flags here. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Was said to be abusive. And then, you know, when you find out that she spent the night with this guy right before she was murdered.
Yeah. He might not have been happy. He might have said, hey, if I can't have you, nobody's going to have you.
Well, we've heard that more times than we care to. The cameras at Kate's apartment building captured him arriving and leaving. Alex told Unsolved Mysteries, I pictured the ex-boyfriend showing up the next day when she left the gym, them getting in the typical fight that they had always gotten into, and Kate leaving and him following her to the park. Because if she had denied him, if she had severed the relationship, you know, again, he would want to retaliate. And I understand where Alex is coming from completely. You could see that theory as a very plausible possibility.
You have to.
But police determined Kate's ex was at a barbershop at the time of the murder. Despite the family's effort to raise awareness and a $100,000 reward, the case eventually went cold. Over the years, the families have expressed frustration with how the investigation has been handled. The families also expressed disappointment that park officials removed their signs that brought attention to the case. The signs did bring in tips, but they also advertised that people were killed in the park.
Well, I can see both sides of that.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you know, as a metro park, do you really want to advertise that people were killed there? No, probably not.
But you also want to make sure you have the opportunity to capture as many tips as you can that might help you. So I don't know the right way to handle that.
Well, as a family, you're going to try to put that stuff or wherever you can.
Yeah.
Some people are going to be okay with it and some people are not. Kelly Stillman was hired as interim ranger chief for Cleveland Metro Parks in November 2021. Soon after taking over, Stillman rejected lead investigator Nick Valente's proposal to bring in the Vidoc Society, a nonprofit group of retired professional criminal investigators who were willing to assist with the investigation.
Yeah, we've had other cases we covered where they have jumped in.
Yeah, and they're quite fascinating, right? The Vidoc Society accepts cold cases and ongoing investigations, 2 years or older, but only if invited by the jurisdictional law enforcement agency. And how many times have we seen, Gibbs, you know, someone in charge, a group, an agency, not want to take advantage of an outside group's help? You know, whether that be in this situation, the Vidoc Society, In others, the FBI.
Sure.
The FBI is offering to come in and help, and you say, no, we're good.
Yeah, we got it.
Knowing that there is no way you have the resources that the FBI does.
Very true.
And I've never understood that. Kate's sister, Lauren, told Cleveland Scene, the Vidocq Society accepts only a few cases annually. I thought we were in. We were celebrating. But Chief Stillman took over and almost immediately decided he didn't want the society helping. It was a huge disappointment. Stillman vaguely referred to bringing in new people to have a fresh set of eyes, yet nothing has resulted. Kate's sister Alex told Cleveland Scene that she knew intimate details of her sister's life, but when she made suggestions to investigators, they were ignored or postponed. She said, when we suggested other ways to get the information from Kate's phone for evidence, they refused. And when I suggested they look into certain contacts of Kate's, they would not follow up. In one case, it took investigators a year to get in touch with my best friend after he had given them solid information within 1.5 weeks after Kate's killing.
Man, if that's true, it's really sad.
It is. And I think you can see here, right, why the families were frustrated. You know, I think frustration happens in almost every unsolved case. Some of it is warranted. We've had a lot of recent cases where it does seem as though the police either dropped the ball, didn't do everything they could do, or at the very least were late in doing certain things. And then I think you have other cases where police are doing everything they can do. The family's just frustrated that they're not getting answers. I think it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Alex said that her Uncle Skip, her father's brother, a recently deceased retired detective, was frequently in touch with former lead investigator Nick Valente. Tom Brown wanted to talk to his brother about the Vidocq Society to obtain information about the resources that the Metro Parks police turned down. According to Brown, among Skip and his colleagues, the consensus was that the Metro Parks bungled the investigation. Witnesses Caitlin and Tony Vaca, who found the bodies and called 911, also told Cleveland Scene that they thought investigators handled the crime scene poorly. According to public records, Metro Parks police didn't shut down the road near the crime scene for almost 45 minutes.
Really? Wow.
Caitlin said that the police allowed a man who arrived shortly before investigators to walk his dog through the area.
That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. You know, Tony said there was no police tape, no boundaries to protect evidence. Worse, they didn't question witnesses the way they should have. They treated it like a stolen package off someone's porch. This is the guy who, found the body.
Yeah.
And he's also not a family member. So he really has no motive to slam the police.
How disappointing, right? I mean, he's saying it's a double murder and they're treating it like it's a stolen parcel off of somebody's porch.
A porch pirate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex pointed out that the witness sitting in his truck was let go and later called back. Her Uncle Skip learned the witness was not tested for gunshot residue. So again, depending on how much of these are true, you could make the case that, not everything was done correctly. Recently, there has been an update in the case. On May 30th, 2025, Cleveland Metro Parks Police announced that detectives were investigating whether a recent murder-suicide could be related to the 2019 murders. Their statement said, Cleveland Metro Parks Police continue to pursue leads into the double homicide of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. Our detectives are investigating whether Brian Hurt has any potential connection to the 2019 double homicide. On May 14, 2025, officers responded to a report of a man shot in the 15,700 block of Munn Road at 1:30 p.m. 66-year-old Brian Hurt allegedly shot and killed 68-year-old Thomas Overall as he was mowing his lawn. Hurt was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound in a vehicle at the nearby Cleveland Metro Park's Groth Memorial and Scenic Overlook. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Thomas Overall didn't have family in the immediate area, but he was well liked by neighbors and was involved in his community. He attended church and worked as a guest service ambassador for the Cleveland Cavaliers. At a town hall meeting on the day of the murder, members of the mayor's administration referred to Brian Hurt as someone who's been a problematic neighbor for a number of years. Hurt had a history of violence and had served time in prison. In 2010, he was convicted of an incident in which he let his dog out and encouraged it to attack a census taker who came to his residence.
Who does that?
He received a suspended sentence and probation. 2 months later, he was arrested in a road rage incident in West Park. Hurt followed a driver who was with his wife and 2 kids, pulled up alongside them, and pointed a gun at them. Okay, I think I talked about it, but I had a guy do that to me maybe a year or 2 ago. While in court for those charges, Hurt was enraged that his bond changed and lunged at the bailiff. He had to be tasered, and the officer had a broken nose. Hurt was sentenced to 5 years in prison. 19 News reported that the Cleveland police were called to Hurt's address 71 times since 2016. They were repeatedly called by neighbors. Some reports complained of Hurt blowing his horn at 4:30 a.m.
That's funny. I'll show you. Beep.
One woman said he shined a light into her windows and she was afraid of him. There were other reports of Hurt calling people slurs and making threats involving a gun. 71 times.
Yeah, man, if you were the police in that neighborhood, you're probably like,
oh, not this guy again.
Are you kidding me? We got to go over there again?
And I get it. Some of this stuff is annoying, possibly illegal regarding like disturbing the peace and in regards to blowing his horn. But, when you're calling people slurs and you're threatening people with a gun, okay, that's a different situation. Also, why are you shining a light into a woman's window? That's pretty scary.
Creepy, yeah. I wouldn't want to be his neighbor, though. That'd be, if you tick him off, you're definitely either going to have a big fight or you're going to be afraid to say anything to him because, he's going to do something stupid to you.
Didn't you have a neighbor who either killed someone or was killed while they were mowing their lawn?
I had a neighbor that he killed his family, then came home. She moved out with the kids, and then he killed them, and then he came home and cut his grass like nothing happened. Yeah.
Okay. I knew it had something to do with cutting the grass. Via their Facebook page, What Happened to Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge? The families wrote in response to the announcement, our families hope that any potential lead is thoroughly examined and due to the close proximity of the West Park murder. Metro Park detectives are simply taking a closer look. Their case remains unsolved and the search for justice continues. Kate's father, Tom Brown, told Fox 8, we speculate, was it the same gun that was used? Was it this? Was it that? If there's a link to be found between Kate and Carnell in this West Park incident, the detectives will find it. Police Chief Kelly Stillman said police were taking a closer look at Hurt because of where the shootings occurred, adding, there were some similarities that we felt warranted an in-depth look at him, his background, and several other things. Because of the ongoing investigation, I can't allude to. Pretty normal, right? They're looking at someone. Obviously, this guy's got a past, a checkered past, but they're not going to release the information that they have as to kind of maybe why they're looking at him or what they have found. Carnell's mother, Darlene Sledge, told 19 News that the Metro Parks police contacted her about why they were looking into the potential connection with Brian Hurt. Darlene said after the murder-suicide happened, they thought it was worth checking into because he went back to the park where Carnell and Kate were murdered. Why would he go to the metro parks to take his own life? He already killed his neighbor, and so he went back to the metro parks to kill himself. That's not such a coincidence. I was kind of thinking that as well. Again, I don't know what is kind of tying this guy potentially to the murders of Kate and Carnell.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, police would want to take a look at him, but
sure,
I don't know what they're going to find, what they've already found, or if there's anything to find.
Just besides the fact he was near the area.
On the 6th anniversary of the murders, Metro Parks Police Chief Kelly Stillman said, per KWYC, "I just want everyone to know that we have not given up, nor will we give up. With homicide investigations, some are real easy. Some are very challenging. This falls into the very challenging category." Also on June 4th, 2025, Cleveland 19 reported that Chief Stillman told their anchor that trace evidence was found at the scene of the murder, but they haven't found a match yet. There's no testing currently being done, but detectives are working the case every day. And to me, that's probably the most encouraging thing that we've talked about.
Yeah.
So, trace evidence, but what does that mean? Is it anything that would potentially lead to a DNA sample? They said there was no testing being done. Has there been any done? We don't know that.
Yeah. And maybe they don't want us to know that right now.
Right. But there could be something in evidence that could lead to somebody directly, or potentially give the authorities, a route to go maybe along the genealogy trail.
That would be great.
And find a potential suspect that way. Chief Stillman also said the weapon Brian Hurt used in the murder-suicide is not the weapon used in the double homicide. And obviously, if it was, they could have wrapped it up pretty quickly. That would be like a literal smoking gun.
Yeah, a slam dunk.
Yeah. It could take up to a year to vet any potential connection Hurt may have to the case. As we said up front, the murders of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge remain unsolved. As we wrap this one up, Gibbs, I go back to where these murders occurred, in a popular park next to a busy road. This didn't occur out in the middle of the woods where nobody could have seen it.
Right.
It's very possible that there were people driving by, that someone could have seen something suspicious that day that could help investigate.
I mean, we know there was a guy sitting in the parking lot doing his estimates.
Yeah. I mean, you would think someone would have come forward by now, but
you would hope.
If you have any information, you can call the FBI's Cleveland field office at 216-622-6842, the Cleveland Metro Parks PD at 440-331-5219, or Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County at 216-252-7463. Tips can be submitted at tips.fbi.gov. I guess when we talk about the most plausible theory, to me, it's somebody in either Kate or Carnell's life, maybe from their past, maybe from their very recent past, or even their current, whether that's relationship or whatever. This idea that they were friends, but Carnell had told Kate that not only did he want more, they were going to be together someday.
Yeah.
And then you have, let's say people that Carnell was dating, people that Kate was either dating or had dated. We said that she had been with her ex-boyfriend.
Right.
The night before. Now, he was alibied, so I don't know that police are looking at him. But to me, I'm thinking it's something along those lines. You can't rule out a total stranger type murder.
No. Or a hate crime.
But if you look at the percentages, that wouldn't be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, I do think, especially if what they are terming trace evidence provides anything in the way of a viable DNA sample, this could be a case that is extremely solvable.
I think so.
I just don't know what's been done. And that's part of the frustration, right?
Yeah.
In these unsolved cases, we can't know everything because the police don't release everything.
But hopefully, like you said, we'll have an update in the near future and the family will be happy to get some justice.
Yeah, I think they're longing for it. They need it. They definitely deserve it. But that's it, right? For our episode on the murders of Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. We got a voicemail. You want to check that out?
Let's hear it.
Hi, my name's Ari. I'm from Arizona. I've been listening to you guys for about going on 7 or 8 years. You guys are definitely one of my favorites. I'm a manager at a Jimmy John's, and I'm by myself opening my store for about 3 hours, Monday through Friday, and I always start my day with you guys. I love the banter. Kind of reminds me of my best friend and I. So I love the respect you guys give to the victims. And respectfully, I am Team Gibby. There isn't one episode where he hasn't made me laugh out loud, cracks me up. I feel like if my bosses could watch the cameras and hear me, they would think that I'm crazy. Anyways, keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep listening. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your own time ticking. Bye, guys.
Awesome. I actually really like Jimmy John.
I do too. And how the hell do they get the sandwiches to you so freaking fast? You know, I remember we used to work at, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the place where we worked together. Yeah, I do remember that.
And we would order from there, literally hang the phone up, it seemed like.
Yeah, it was like the commercial, and the guy was,
he was
or
at the
whoever
door.
was
We're
at
like,
the
what
door.
the heck, man? How'd you get across town so fast with our sandwich? Did you make him in the car on the way over?
Well, they do make them very fast there, so
That's true.
when you go in.
Yeah.
But
They are good.
we appreciate the voicemail very much.
You do, Harry. Thank you.
All right, buddy, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike,
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
This summer, Pluto TV is exploding with thousands of free movies. Summer of Cinema is here. Feel the explosive action all summer long with movies like Gladiator, Mission Impossible, Beverly Hills Cop, Good Burger, and Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Bring the action with you and stream for free from all your favorite devices. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.
Hey y'all, life's journey is filled with change, growth, and exciting new chapters. Whether you're welcoming a new family member, stepping into a new city, or chasing after your biggest dreams, you need a ride that's built with more space for the grand challenges ahead. The Toyota Grand Highlander is made for those who embrace every twist and turn. With advanced safety features, innovative tech, and a bold, sophisticated design, it's the SUV that adapts with you with room to spare. This spacious beauty seats up to 8, gives you up to 97.5 cubic feet of cargo space, and has a diverse engine lineup, available in gas or hybrid options, including the powerful 362 horsepower Hybrid Max. Plus, available all-wheel drive means you'll have confidence no matter where life takes you. Ready to take on your dreams? The Grand Highlander is more than a vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From daily routines to unexpected adventures, it's up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.